Hello everyone, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com. Today I am bringing you a brand new tutorial from the beads that were included in the Vintage Dreams collection by Eureka Crystal Beads. You can see I've got some very colorful and sparkly earrings here using a couple of the Rivoli stones and different types of seed beads. I'll have the fullest materials down below the video in the description section with additional links. And I will link to the Vintage Dreams collection on Eureka's website if you're interested in picking one of those up. It's got everything you need to make a pair of these earrings. And just to give you another example, here is a neutral colorway in light gold. That's just an example of another variation using different colors and varieties of the same types of beads and how it can really transform the look of this design. So have fun with the colors. If you want to use what you have in your own stash, you can certainly do that. And feel free to share pictures if you do that with me on social media and tag me if you'd like. As you can see today, we're going to be using some size 11.0 Miyuki Delica beads, some 15 and 11.0 round seed beads in two different colors for the 15.0s. Also, some of the 3mm fire polished rounds and two very special sparkly 12mm crystal Rivoli stones. For my beading thread today, I'm using the 6-pound 0.006 inch diameter Fireline, and I'll be using a size 11 beading needle. To get started, we're going to make one earring, and then you can just back up the video again to make your second one if you need to. But first, just trim off a comfortable length of beading thread. It'll take about 3 or 4 feet to make one of these earrings, so trim that off. Go ahead and thread your beading needle, gather up your materials, and let's jump into this tutorial. All right, so first what we want to do is pick up 30 of these Delica beads. That's the amount that's going to fit snugly around that Rivoli stone. So just one at a time, pick up 30 of those. And you can bring those down to the end of your thread. Leave yourself about a 6-inch tail. That's something we'll weave back in a little bit. Not using a stop bead at this point. Just going to hold that together carefully and give this a recount and just make sure you definitely have 30 Delicas on your thread before we proceed. Okay, so that's 30. Then we're going to take our needle and we're going to sew back through all 30 of those Delica beads again. It's going to bring these beads into a loop. And take your time on this. As usual, there's no rush. Just make sure you don't miss any beads as you go around. So that's all 30, and we're going to go through one more to complete this loop. And holding both sides of the thread, just pull that together. And here's what we're starting with. Just keep that tail thread how it is right now, and we are going to do 2 rounds of peyote stitch using the same Delica beads. So my thread's currently coming out of that one. We're going to pick up another Delica, skip the next bead, and sew through the next. Pull tight, and then do it again. Pick up a Delica, skip the next bead, and sew through the next. Just like that. We're going to do that all the way around. So keep going. and pull tight after each addition. You can see it's creating this effect where we have two beads stacked on top of each other and alternating with a single bead. So let's keep going. Do that all the way around. I'll meet you back when we get back to the beginning of this section. All right, so I am at my last bead. That's the tail thread coming out down there. This is my working thread. We're going to pick up that one more Delica to finish this row. And we're going to skip the next bead, go through the next, and go through the next one that is sticking up. That is our step up so we can begin our next row. And we're going to proceed with some more Delicas. So pick up a Delica, and then it gets a little bit easier as you go now because we're going to go through the beads that are sticking up. So we'll go through that next bead that sticks up, pick up another one, and sew through the next. And once again, just do that all the way around till you get back to the beginning. And that's where I'll meet you back, and we will continue on. All right, we're back to the beginning of this row. I'm picking up my last Delica. Once again, there's that tail thread right there. Just ignore that for now. Skip the next bead, go through the next plus the next one that's sticking up so we can do our step up for the next row. And as we pull this, you'll notice that it starts to compress the ring just a little bit and the beads start stacking on top of each other just a bit more. Now we're going to be doing a couple more rows of peyote on the front of this bezel to really hold in that stone, and I'm going to use that really fun mix from Eureka's collection, and I'm going to pick out the silver lined orange beads that are in that small 15-0 size to work with next. All right, so I'm actually going to leave the stone in here as I go. I'm going to hold that with my thumb and my forefinger, and I'm not going to worry about the tail thread yet. I don't want to get rid of that yet because that's still giving us a little bit of flexibility for this bezel, and then we can tighten it up later after the stone is more snugly in place. So just picking up where we have stopped, I'm coming out of this Delica right here, and we're just going to proceed by doing 2 more rows of peyote stitch, skipping the next bead, going through the one that's sticking up, doing that in the 15-0s. Just give it a little turn and go through the next bead that's sticking up and just pull that a little bit snugly as you go. Of course, the stone's not going to be in there securely yet, but this at least helps us to form the shape around the stone. All right, so we're back to where we started on this row, just going through that next Delica and now up through the very first 15-0 that we added, holding that together just as best I can with my fingers while I pull this tight to start to form that snug round shape around the stone. So right now it's more about shaping than getting that to sit securely. We're still going to do a little bit on the back to make sure that piece won't go anywhere. And now let's wrap up the front of the bezel with one more row of peyote using our 15 O's once again. And we have one more to add. So going through the next 15 O, and I'm also going to go through the next one that's sticking up. And right here, start to pull that really tight and start to try to get those beads centered around the stone. And the last thing we're going to do up here is just sew around all those 15 O's one more time to tighten up this bezel before we move on to doing any more. So I'm just going through these beads like two at a time and then pulling after each pass through. Don't worry, our stone's not secure yet, but we're definitely getting there. We're closer than we were. All right, so just keep going a little bit past the beginning where your tail thread is. That marks where the beginning of our rows are pretty much. So just go past that a little bit. Pull tight and stretch that beadwork just around the stone, nice and central with that point located in the center. And then we're gonna turn around. I'm gonna go through the next Delica bead just before that 15 O that we're coming out of. And I'm gonna weave back and forth through the beads just a little bit until I'm coming out of one of these Delicas that's sticking up on the bottom. We're going to do a row of peyote all the way around this bottom section using our 15 O's in the orange also. And that's the point where it's really going to hold in that stone. So with my thread coming out of that bead that's sticking up down there, I'm picking up another 15 O and sewing through the next bead that's sticking out. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around the back of this bezel. And especially back here now, make sure you pull the beadwork tight after each new bead that you add. And now I'm going to take the last bead, go through the next Delica and the next 15-0, pull nice and tight. Make sure your beadwork is centered around the stone. And now we're just gonna sew through the back of the bezel one more time and tighten that area up. So just go back through those beads. I'm going through a couple at a time and holding that together, and make sure you go just a little bit past where you started. All right, it's always so satisfying to me to get to this point. The stone is in place, it's not going anywhere, and we can start to work on the design that goes around the outside. So let's make sure we're coming out of the right Delica before we proceed. See how it's coming out of this one that's at the very bottom. I'm going to sew through the next bead that is just a little bit above it, and that's the row that we want to be coming out of, and we're going to continue sewing around. All right, so we're still using the beads from the mix. I'm going to pick out those metallic magenta colored 11 O's, picking one up, skipping over the next Delicas, going through the next one that's in the same line as the one that we're coming out of, and popping one of those beads in place. Do that all the way around. Pick up an 11 O, sew through the next Delica that's in the same row. You can see what that looks like from the front. Do that all the way around the entirety of the bezel. And for right now, I'm going to put a needle on my tail thread, weave that back in to get it out of the way. And I'm going to meet you back once we have all those 11 O's in place around the outside and the tail threads woven in. So keep going, have fun, and I'll see you in just a moment. All right, so we have almost all those beads in place. On my last metallic pink, going through that next Delica that we need to go through, hold tight, and then sew through the next 11 O that's sticking up. I'm going to turn this over, and that is what you should have so far. And now we're in place to add in some more beads around the outside. So this is where I picked out some of the 15 O's in that really lovely teal color, and also have some 3mm fire polish beads. We're going to be using 6 of those today. And we're going to start by taking one of our 15 O's and then sewing through the next 11 O that's sticking out. Do that again. Pick up a 3mm fire polish and then sew through the next 11 O. And just repeat that around the outside of the bezel 4 more times. All right, so we're at our last section. I'm going to pick up a fire polish and sew through the next few beads, just however many that I can get through at first. Pull that tight. And I just want to sew around all these beads on the outside one more time to reinforce this row. Going through the 11 O's and the 15 O's and the fire polish. Make sure again you don't miss any beads. And then I'm going to sew through the next 11 O that comes right after one of our 3mm fire polish beads. I'm going to grab some more of my Delicas because we're going to need those at the moment. All right, so we just have a little something to do here at the top so we can make an attachment point for our earring finding. You can pick up a Delica, sew back through the same 11 O, and then sew through the next 15 O and the next 11 O. And once you pull that, you can see that Delica is going to sit right on top of the 11 O. We're going to pick up another Delica, sew back through the same 11 O, sew through the next 15 O and 11 O. Once again, that's sitting right on top of the 11 O. We're going to do that again, sewing back through this time just the 11 O. And we have these 3 Delica beads sticking up. I'm going to sew through the one we just added, going in the opposite direction. And then pick up another Delica, sew through the next. Pick up another Delica and sew through the next. So you have this little strip of beads like that. Then we're going to go down through the 11 O right below this one. And pull. Step up, going through the next Delica bead above like that. Pick up another Delica. Skip the next Delica and sew through the next 2 beads. And pull. You should have something like that. Then pick up 2 new Delicas. Sew through the one in the center that's sticking up. Pull. Pick up 2 more Delicas. And then sew back through. Just all 5 Delicas in that row below. Then changing back directions, sew through those next 2. You see how there's a little slight indent right there. We're going to pick up one of our 3mm fire polish at this point, so it's going to sit nestled in the center, and sew through the next 2 Delica beads. And pull tight. Should have something that looks like this. And then I'm going to sew through the next 2 Delica beads going in this other direction. Stepping up, sewing through the next one in the center. Then I'm going to step up through the fire polish bead going in the opposite direction. All right, finally, we're going to pick out some more of those 15 O's in that orange with the silver lining. And we're going to grab 1, 2, 3, pick out 1 teal that'll go in the center. And then 3 more orange ones. So once you have those on your needle, sew back through the same fire polish to wrap those beads around it. You'll have something like this. And then sew up through those 3 15-ohs. Skip the teal 15-oh. Sew through the next 3 to get that teal one to stick up and form a peak. Sew back through the fire polish. Just going to use my needle and help that one up that way and pull tight. I'm going to go around those one more time, just through the 3, skip the teal, go down through the next 3, and back through the fire polish. And pull tight. Awesome. So that is our earring, actually. It's all complete. We just need to add the earring finding at the top. Before we do that, of course, we just want to make sure we end this working thread. I'm going to go through a couple more Delicas, go through some of these. You're just going to weave your thread a little bit through the beadwork. And if you go back and forth enough times, you really don't even need to knot it. And there's multiple ways to do this, so just determine how many beads you want to go through. You can make a couple half-hitch knots here and there if you'd like, and then hide the knots by going through more beads. And if you notice any spots where you want to tighten up your tension, you can do that at this point too. Make one little knot here. And sew down through a few more beads. Make one more little knot. And sew through a few more. Pull tight. And then trim your excess thread. All right, and we got a couple of earring findings in the Eureka Vintage Dreams collection. So I'm going to use what we had received in there, pulling that loop open a little bit with my pliers, and just going underneath that little orange bead section, just gently centering that in place and squeezing that wire back so it's tight. And there we have it, guys. Our earrings are complete. Aren't they so colorful and fun? I just love the vibrant colors of the collection this time around. I love how they switch it up. Don't forget you can check on Eureka's website for the collection, pick one up if they still have them available, and also take a look at some of their previous collections. And don't forget you can get these types of beads in all different colors, as well as the stones in different beautiful varieties. And it's amazing how a little color change can totally shift and transform the look of a design. There's an example of one that is a little bit more neutral in light gold. And that does it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial and hopefully creating along with me. I'd love to hear about your journey. If you want to leave me a comment down below, I'd love to hear if you tried these earrings. You can let us know what colors you used, anything you'd like to say. I'll have the full list of materials down below the video as well, so you can check that out if you need it. I hope you'll join me for future tutorials, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel, give the video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to share the video with your other beading friends, especially if you have other groups on Facebook and the like with lots of beaders who may also like to try out this design. Well, that's it for now. I'm going to go enjoy some of the fresh snow that fell this morning in Central Virginia. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy wherever you are. I want to send you lots of love. Until next time, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. And as always, happy beading.